Over the next few minutes, I'd like to explain how I believe you can answer some really important questions, challenges in your life, by using your immediate environment and surroundings for inspiration. I'd like to talk to you about street wisdom. Street wisdom, I'd like to talk about its effect on me. I'd like to talk effect on other people, and I'd like to explain, I think, how it could really help and be a positive thing for you as well. Street Wisdom essentially is a non-for-profit organisation. It's in over 20 countries, and its manifestation is around street wisdom adventures, where we meet on the streets, effectively street walks, volunteers, strangers gather together, volunteers like myself take people out, and we use the streets for inspiration. And there are three aspects to it. It's a 3-hour, it takes about 3 hours, and there are three aspects to it. The first one is tune, the second one is ask, and the third one is share. And so once we gathered in the morning and had a bit of a coffee, we have an hour where we tune, and people wander off on their own, and we ask them to try and connect with the street. So we have exercises where people walk slowly, which seems a bit weird, but actually when you do that in a city, it's even weirder because everybody's really walking really fast. Everyone's going in a real rush. We ask people to look for patterns in the streets. And one of my favorites is we ask people to look for the beauty in everything. Even in the most, unpleasant streets, it's really possible to do that. And then that's the first hour. The second hour, we ask people to ask a question. So when people have a question, we ask them to ask the street a question. The kinds of questions that people might ask would be, should I change jobs? Should I move flat? Should I go to another city? Should I start my own business? Is a very popular one. Should I start a relationship? Should I end a relationship? Generally speaking, the questions that work are the ones which are not too, kind of in the middle, not too small. So where should I put my TV in the lounge? Probably just a little bit too small. Or is there a God? Well, perhaps a little bit too high for a 3-hour session. But somewhere in between those kinds of questions, middle kind of questions. And then we share. We generally meet in a pub afterwards, which is always good. And this is a lovely bunch that I gathered together that came on a street wisdom adventure outside a pub, and we had a really good chat. And what we do there is we kind of talk about the things that we've just been thinking about, what we found out, and we share that kind of information, which is really powerful. And so street wisdom is kind of a really, I see it as kind of a really powerful force. I guess you could kind of say that it's like an invisible university, or it's a free street workshop. One of the things I quite like is maybe it's like a technology that kind of induces mindfulness, induces and encourages mindfulness. So why do people go on a street wisdom? Well, there are a number of reasons, and these are the kinds of things that they might be looking to try and answer, the kinds of things they have in their heads where they needed kind of a different environment to help them. They might feel a bit trapped. They want a bigger perspective in terms of looking up. They might feel as though there are no options to them. There's no turning that's available. They might want to know what the future holds, which is always nice. Some people feel as though they're in a bit of a dead end. Some people feel as though they've got too many options. They feel like they're on a bit of a roundabout. And actually, very often, the really kind of key thing is it's about an A or B choice. Which way should I turn in the road? And it's really great for that. And the thing is, I think it's interesting to talk about the cities and how they can inspire us. Because very often we kind of look at, even though we live in a really kind of urban environment, we look upon the cities very often as kind of ugly places. We long to escape to remote locations where we can get some refreshment and reinvigoration like this fabulous Scottish loch. And that's great. And of course, there's plenty of wonderful relaxation and respite to be had there. But street wisdom is about having inspiration in unexpected places, closer to home. Very often, just outside your front door. And what I really like about Street Wisdom is the fact that the way that it works on many, many levels. Sometimes it's not that you'll necessarily get a bolt of lightning as soon as you start going through this process, or it's like a Damascene conversion. Sometimes, but very often there are insights that you'll get to help you with a kind of a key decision you need to make, or tipping that balance between one thing you might want to do and another thing you might want to do. It could be someone you speak to. That's really powerful. Talking to a stranger on the street is really powerful. It could be a connection with an object or something you see, a sign. Not like a kind of a mythical sign, but a real one. You know, those signs can really tell you what to do. Or it could simply just be getting into a different kind of mindset. One of the things we all often say about the street is that you need to be patient, and you need to listen. Because the street doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, but it's always worth listening to. So, just a little bit about how I kind of, became a volunteer and got involved in this process. And it was kind of against a backdrop, maybe about 4 years ago, where the backdrop essentially was working for many years of big companies in big office blocks. And I never really liked that much. And I had this idea about running my own business, doing my own thing. I wanted validation, reassurance about that. And I went on a Street Wisdom adventure in Trafalgar Square. It was a June day, not unlike today, 4 years ago. And I wandered up to Pascal, who's he sees himself as a modern troubadour. He was busking outside the National Gallery. And I explained about my past and my plan. And he was powerfully positive about the importance of doing something that you loved. And he really reassured me that my choice about doing my own thing, running my business, doing something that I love was a good idea. So that was kind of my journey with Street Wisdom. But I'd like to talk quickly about a couple of other examples, quite different, and how they kind of experienced this the kind of wisdom adventures. And the first one is Derek. Now, Derek is, he's from Edinburgh. He works in business education. He openly describes himself as a corporate communications type. And this is about a year and a half ago. He wasn't very happy with his lot. He had a really long commute to work. He got up early in the morning. He came home late at night. And although he quite liked his job, he didn't like having to do that. And he, like so many of us, I think, he spent a lot of time thinking about his work, his job, but very little time thinking about life. And so when he was first exposed to Street Wisdom, he didn't dig it at all. He thought, this is a load of poppycock, really. He didn't see him as a spiritual person. He didn't see himself as spiritual. He definitely wasn't a kind of an kind of person. He thought, not for me. But he went on an adventure, and then he went on another one, and then eventually ran it for himself. And things changed. He had been thinking for many, many years about trying to buy a flat in Edinburgh. He didn't think he could afford it. But he investigated a few mortgage offers. He got a great deal, and he moved. So now he lives in a flat which is 20 minutes from his home. And he walks to and from his work, and he has a Street Wisdom adventure on the way in and a Street Wisdom adventure on the way out. And it may not seem that that's like a massive change, but it's made a big difference to his life. It's radically changed his life. And what Street Wisdom did, and his exposure to it, is it gave him helped him understand how positive different thinking can have an effect. And that's a nice example of someone who normally wouldn't like that sort of thing, but really, really got it. And then there is Anna. Now, Anna was a lady I met a few months ago, a Street Wisdom adventure I was running, and we sort of gathered together outside a coffee shop, and I started the day, as I often do, asking where people have come in from. And most people have come in from fairly local kind of areas. But it turned out that Anna had flown in from Ghana, which I thought was pretty impressive. I thought quite touched by that. But actually, what happened was, it turned out that she'd been on a previous street wisdom adventure, and on that day, on that morning, she had decided, she'd been umming and ahhing, but she kind of decided to join a venture, a friend of hers who invited her to set up a makerspace in Ghana, which is quite a big deal. And she'd asked the street the question whether she should do it, and the sense she got and the messages she got back, well, that was a really positive thing that she should do. And this is the makerspace. It's Kumasi Hive, and it's actually just done some Kickstarter funding, actually, which is rather fabulous. And actually had a target of, I think, 10,000, and they've exceeded that, so they've managed to raise a lot of funding for equipment. And Kumasi Hive is all about helping local entrepreneurs and innovators, positive social impact, really helping local expertise. So it's really cool. It's doing some fantastic work. And so Anna got that idea, she got that inspiration from street wisdom, and obviously that's a bigger change geographically than obviously Derek's example and perhaps some other ones that people have had on street wisdom. But the key thing is that the inspiration she had, Derek had, and the inspiration that anybody has when they're on street wisdom is simply derived from a walk that they've been on, a different kind of walk in their city. But of course, that kind of inspiration can come from any city, from any town in the world. And so those are just a few examples, really, of how simple it can be to find some really great answers to important challenges and questions that people have in their lives. And if you fancy using street wisdom to answer some important questions that you have, I and the Street Wisdom team would be really happy to point you in the right direction. Thank you very much.